great to be back in the workshop finally after nearly a month away. Holiday in China with the wifey and some slight injury concerns which turned Fixit Fingers workshop into a one-handed workshop for a while. But now the physio has said that I'm allowed to start doing some exercise. It'd be good for my recovery, and as long as I don't pick up anything too heavy, I can get back on the tools, which is great because I'm under the pump now. I've lost a month and I've only got 3 or 4 weeks to get some stock made for the OzGeoMuster. I'm going to revisit a simple idea as the first project mildly injured, and that's to rebuild the prototype which I made for my giant GCA Pathtag holder. It holds 12 Pathtags and is a fairly quick little build, so that's where we're going to kick things off again. Right, step one is to make a template to batch these out. This is some 9mm MDF, and of course I have printed up a copy of my little map of Australia. Bit of spray adhesive, get us started with the jigsaw. Now I can use my new CMT 12mm router bit to get close up to the line and rough out the general shape. So that paper is obviously not ideal. I'm going to have to use a box cutter. That's exactly how I did this, to trace out the line and then peel off the paper so I can see it closer. So there's my template. Here's my board, picked it up, and now I'm going to see how many little Australias I can make fit on here with the minimum amount of waste. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 of them I got out of that board. Fantastic. I've got 2 of them. That means I can make 16 of this pattern, or I can maybe do a different one. Right, so here are my 4 stages of production really. This is the template that I made out of the 9mm MDF. This is the rough cut one that I did with the jigsaw. And this here is the final product, which has been done with a flush trim bit on the router. However, I've decided to go for an intermediate as well. This here is a scroll saw bit, and trying to get around all of this wood with the flush trim, there was just too much there. It took too long. Much more efficient, if you see, we can bring the line much closer on this better bit. Obviously a bandsaw would have been fantastic because you could go right up to the line with some confidence, but this moves around. It's not super accurate, but it does get me close enough that I can eliminate vast majority of the wood to only give me a tiny bit for the flush trim to take off. I suffered one little blowout up here at Cape York. I'm going to try and fix that, I think. There's not too much wood missing. Should be able to patch that up. A rather more serious blowout was this. That's the top bearing off my brand new bit from CMT. So I'm going to contact Pathtag about that one and see if they can sort me out with a new one. The bit's fine, so the bearing just exploded in my face. Lucky I had the PPE. All of these are now cut to shape and size. This is probably easy with two good hands, but to get these apart when they're stuck together, just grab a palette knife, slide it in there, try and find the tip. There you go. And they should come apart quite easy. I'm putting a small round over on the back, and I'm going to put a chamfer on the front. Right, before I move on to the last stage of cutting the holes there, I want to repair this little blowout. So very quickly, I've cut that off as flat as I can. I've got myself the right size piece and try to leave as much surface area on there as possible, matching the grain going in the same direction. Now the tricky part is I'm going to attach that with as much double-sided tape as I can and try to flush trim around to shape, because once I reattach it, I don't want to touch it with the router. There's just not going to be enough surface area to hold on under that strain. Wish me luck, we'll see how we go. If not, this one's going to be on sale. All that work for that little bit. Hopefully when I glue it on and sand it, it looks neat enough. Hole cutting time. What I've done here is just stuck another paper template down. I've got my oversized template from the last time I built these. This is obviously the geometric pattern done with a Forstner bit, and then I used the router to cut the correct size hole for this template. It looks like a bit of double play, but getting the exact right size hole for the Pathtag is pretty tricky. So these are the steps that I have to go. Luckily with this one, I don't have to be geometric. So if they're a little bit off, not as fussed. Okay, so there is my hole template, and you may notice one slight problem. I had a clamp slip here. The other 11 holes are all pretty good, so I've got my single hole jig. I think I'm just going to use that rather than recut the whole thing, because quite frankly that would take quite a while. Ah well. So I can locate each of my little Australias correctly with their holes, what I'm going to do is drill some pilots and put some nails in to a few anchor points, and that way I can just slide up the template. Right, so 4 countersink nails. Let's test the fit. Beautiful. Good bananas. So they're a little bit lower than the 19 mils now. This goes in backwards, of course. That's nice and firm in there. And when I flip it over, I now have my template ready. Right, that was a lot. seriously, if you're going to do this full time, a CNC would almost be worth the investment. That takes quite a while, nearly an hour and a half's work to put all the 11 holes in each. To turn my 11 holes into 12 holes, I'm just going to use my single Pathtag jig, which works quite easily. Yeah, nicely that repair worked as well. I have to still sell it at a discount, but at least it's fixed. Grab that. Position up on the little marks that I have made for each of them. And this shouldn't take too long. Now it's time to cut the holes for the magnets. Previously, I made up this tiny little jig, which did work quite well. It just centers itself, and then I could drop the Dremel through here with the stand, and it would cut a fairly accurate hole. The biggest problem was I had to keep turning the Dremel off and on constantly, and doing this over and over and over again isn't terribly great for the motor. So I decided to invest in a plunge router base for the Dremel. I was going to build one, I was going to modify my old one, but with injuries and time concerns, I decided the 40 bucks for this was going to be a worthwhile investment. And even better, I lucked out massively because one of the bushels that it came for is exactly the same size as my Pathtag. I've got a bit of cardboard on there just to make it more stable, but effectively, this does exactly what this Pathtag did. It centers it in the hole, and now I can leave the Dremel running and just keep plunging down and knocking out all of these little 1mm deep holes. They're only tiny, but they're important. All my little holes perfectly centered in a few seconds. That is a massive, massive time saver for this sort of kit. Right, the next step was going to be tricky. I need to put the keyhole in the back of it so these things can hang on the wall. And not being a geometric shape, I had to roughly find the balance point, which I did just by hammering a nail in and balancing it on my finger until I found the rough center. Then I've done 2 holes, the start and stop hole for the keyhole bit so I could mark it. And that looks pretty damn good. This looked familiar. It's the upside down hole cutting jig that I made. The best thing about this setup is, while it was a bit fiddly to get into the right position, now it's clampless. So all I do is position my Australia like that, and I'll be able to make the cut very, very quick. So I go start position, and then end position. And using the fence and my base helps me keep the cut 90 degrees. I don't even need to mark it. Second little burst clears out the dust. And there we go. 1 keyhole cut. Let's go test it. That should look good hanging on anyone's wall. Mate, this is a jig that just keeps on giving. I've done the holes, I've done the backside keyhole slot, and now I'm going to use it to do the little bit of rivering I want to do between Australia and Tasmania. So I'm just going to literally cut out this with, again, my new favourite toy, the Dremel plunge router, and then I'll be able to use that template to cut it out on the 16 holders. Let's see how that looks. Mate, happy with that. That's beautiful. Fantastic. Just shows you. No CNC, no worries. Build yourself a jig or two and you can get a lot done pretty efficiently. Zen and the art of supergluing incredibly small magnets into tiny little holes. This is actually incredibly tricky stuff because if you've done the hole a little bit too deep, the magnet sits too low and it doesn't have the power to hold the Pathtag. But if you haven't done them deep enough, then the magnet sits proud and the Pathtag looks wonky. Patience is a key. And that's where the workshop time ended. I actually ran out of time for these ones thanks to my injury. Had to load up the car, head down to the OzGeoMuster and finish these off at the event while setting up my stall. Only a couple of things left to do. Grabbed my favourite Jarrah coloured stain and whacked in a little bit of darkness on Bass Strait. Now the final part to make them look pretty, we're going to get the Danish oil with the gym sock again, and these will finally be ready for sale. Love the Danish oil, it just goes on so easily, and it's nearly impossible to stuff it up. And it smells great. There we go, looking much better already. Only a few more to go. And then set them out to dry, left them overnight, and they were ready for sale. Massive thanks to Eat, Sleep, Cache, Repeat and See My Shell, the Aussie geocacher, for these last couple of lovely pics of the tag holders, full of colourful tags, just like they should be. That's all for this project. If you're interested in these holders and don't really want to try making them yourself, head to my Facebook page where I've got both of the designs, the square one and the Australia one, now ready for sale. Catch you soon.